So there's really one conversation that families need to have, especially if your son plays high school baseball and he has dreams and aspirations to play in college. And this conversation revolves around dreams, goals, and really the scope of what your son really should be looking for as he progresses as a high school baseball player. And before I get into this video, this is the very first video you've ever seen of mine. My name is Evan Mendoza. I played 7 years of professional baseball between the Cardinals and Padres, went to the D1 level at NC State University, which is where I landed a scholarship. And inside my academy, we've helped over 200 high school baseball players out through conversations like this. But more importantly, we create a dynamic for these conversations to exist within families, which is way more important than really anything else, because it all starts with a conversation. And ideally, as parents, you, and I'm going to say you because I don't have any kids, but if you're a parent out there, we want your son to start these conversations himself, because when he starts these conversations himself, it becomes that much more real for you as the parent to know where your son's mind is, right? Like if his mind is on video games, girls, and partying, right? And that's what he wants to talk about, then it's going to be very obvious. That's what consumes his mind. But if he comes to you one day, and this is really that conversation that a lot of families neglect, is basically, hey mom, hey dad, can we sit down, right? Whoa. If your kid doesn't have many conversations with you, or maybe he always brushes off the advice that you give him, because that's pretty common at this age, especially at the high school level with teenagers. The players don't want to necessarily listen to their parents. I get it. But if your son ever did that, hey mom, hey dad, can we sit down? I want to talk about my future. Are you going to sit down? Are you going to hear him out? I would say you probably are 110 times out of 100, right? And what if he starts out that conversation with, hey, I want to talk about my dreams and goals and I want to play college baseball. So now it's very clear that your son actually wants to play college baseball. It's not a question mark. And I think this is the conversation that a lot of families will just neglect for not just weeks, not just months, but unfortunately, it comes down to a couple of years. Your son might be a freshman. He's enjoying baseball. He has a lot of fun. But after freshman year, it's like, okay, little Johnny is doing really well. He's having fun. He's one of the better players on the JV team. And sophomore year, he continues to have fun with his other teammates. And college hasn't even occurred to you yet, because he's only a sophomore. I've made videos about, how parents will talk about how their son's only a freshman, only a sophomore. Guys, you only have 4 years to figure this stuff out. So there's a finite amount of time. But time passes like a blink of an eye, and your son's going to be a junior. He's going to be a senior. And if you don't develop out these recruiting strategies, or really even just have this conversation, this is where you can start to really feel behind the curve. So again, if you have that quick conversation, and by the way, if you're a player out there listening to this video, have that conversation with your parents. Hey mom, hey dad, can we sit down? I want to talk about my future, right? Let them hear you out as far as what you want out of your career in baseball, because at the end of the day, it is your career, dude, nobody else's. But this is the difficult part, right? If you're a parent watching this video, how do we instill the right things into our son? Or your son, right? Not our son, but into your son, where he takes that own initiative. Because I've had so many conversations with families that do the typical skill development route and think that they're doing enough, right? Because I've done many videos, I've done lives before where we talk about the umbrella of player development, and skill development is just one of 5 areas. We also have the physical development in the gym, getting bigger, stronger, and faster. The mental development, obviously making sure that we have the baseball IQ and, frameworks to overcome those struggles. We also talk about the diet, the nutrition, the hydration, the supplements that we can be fueling our body with, and then also the leadership, right? All of that consumes player development. And more than likely, your son's probably going to hitting lessons maybe once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks because you drive him, or because you're paying for it and hey, we want to make sure that we're getting at least 1 hour of quality instruction in a week. In my opinion, that dynamic is inverse of what it should be. I think your son needs to be the one that puts in the work to such an extent beyond that 1 hour a week, where that 1 hour a week almost becomes insubstantial, right? It's basically we have to drive somewhere, just, have someone tell my son, good job, whenever he hits a line drive. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money, in my opinion. And this is exactly the way that I thought when I was around 6th, 7th grade. I completely gave in to the idea that private lessons lessons were not going to work for me. I needed to figure these things out by myself and really take that ownership of my own career, making sure that I have the ability to become my own best coach. And through that, I did learn the work ethic. I did learn how to put that abnormal amount of hard work in that my teammates that were going to a hitting lesson once a week, they thought that that was enough. But I was doing 4 times the amount because I was hitting for 3 or 4 hours a day. I was doing that extra work on my own, in my own initiative, and they were doing it because they were told to, maybe by their parents, or they thought that that was enough. And they viewed it, especially in these high level, high leverage developmental years, they probably thought, hey, quality over quantity. And yes, to some extent that is important, maybe at the professional level. But when we're teenage boys, we need to be doing a lot more than everyone else. If we can do the thing a lot more, if we sprint a lot more, if we throw the baseball a lot more, I'm not even talking about doing a throwing program, I'm just talking about throwing the baseball. If you throw the baseball 1,000,000 times versus the person that throws the baseball 10 times, who do you think is going to throw harder? Same concept applies for hitting off the tee. If someone takes 10 billion swings off the tee versus the person that takes 1,000,000, who is going to be a better hitter? In my eyes, like, these radical extremes showcase how these 1 hour lessons are, again, just like not needed. And also it creates the environment where your son has to have someone by his side to be able to do that extra work. So I didn't want this video to really be about too much about private lessons and where my stance on. It needs to be more on like where your son, or how we want to instill an environment for your son to be able to have that conversation of, hey mom, hey dad, I want to talk about my future. I want to talk about my career in baseball. I want to play D1 baseball. I'm not just saying I want to play at LSU or Tennessee. I think I can do it. I want to do it. Now, how can I do that? Right? And you as parents, of course, this might be your only child. It might be your eldest child or oldest child. I don't know if that, well, eldest makes sense. But you might not necessarily have those answers for him. So that's, where I come in. I do work one-on-one with all my students inside my remote training program. We have a couple students in Japan, Mexico, Canada, and of course all across the United States, because I've gone through that recruiting process. I understood what that flip of the switch really looked like, really around that sophomore year, where I took the bull by the horns. I understood that the work that was needed was going to be unfathomable by 99% of most high school baseball players. And by doing that work consistently, that's where that confidence came from. That's where the metrics improving came from. That's where the interest from college coaches came from. So again, it really, really initiates from that one conversation and being real with that conversation. So that way you can have a little bit more of a guidance. You can receive more guidance, but also so that you have a game plan so you don't feel like you're always behind. Because again, if you always feel behind, that confidence is going to start to creep in between the lines, and that's going to be where your son suffers, not just where you suffer. So hopefully that message made sense, guys. If you're interested in working one-on-one with me, you can always click the link down below in the description. Or if you just want to learn a little bit more on how to reach out to these college baseball coaches, there's a free course on exactly how to do that down below in the description. Go grab that right now.